What is up, team? Welcome back to the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. I'm Pat Kane. I'm joined once again by my good friend Cole Latshaw. Rick Pitino has done it again. He completes his roster this time, sometime in June. Before July. Okay, cut him some slack. It may take a little longer than some had hoped, but he goes overseas and grabs highly coveted big man Ruben Prey to fill out the 13-man roster. Cole, I know you're excited. I know St. John's fans are excited. It seems we can now go towards imagining all the roster combinations that are possible with St. John's 13-man roster. What are your opening thoughts on Rick Pitino going to Portugal to grab Ruben Prey to finish off this nice off-season haul?
Meh. I think two things can be true at one time. Like, we obviously are excited about Ruben Prey. There have already been whispers that he's had NBA looks, that he's got NBA upside, especially if he stays for more than a year or two. Maybe he sees his junior year. There's no better coach at player development than Rick Pitino. Rick will help him build on some of his weaknesses, make him an all-around. He already has tremendous skills. We'll talk about how he's an elite passer, how he has a great nose for the ball on the glass. But at the same time, when we were involved with real difference makers at the power forward position, like Dylan Mitchell, like Jameer Watkins, like Norchad Omier, I think it's kind of hard to not be a little bit disappointed not being able to get Chris Ledlam back when we pretty much go with option E here with Ruben Prey, who I don't know if he can be a day one starter at that power forward spot where we're really lacking. And I think you see some of that being addressed with our odds having fallen for the national championship by a lot of sports books. We were pretty much at 40-1 for a long time. Most have now moved us back to 50-1 or 60-1. I think that's kind of a result of they were right there at the end of the chase for these real top of the line transfer portal guys. And then ultimately their addition is a young kid from Portugal who has tremendous upside, but might not be ready day one to be a starter.
Okay, Red Storm Rapid Reaction fans, how about Cole just throwing that wet blanket on you right now to just settle you down, settle your expectations down?
I'm a realist.
You bring up good points, Cole. Absolutely, don't be afraid to be a realist. And I think when you look at it from that perspective, option E might be a true way of describing it, but it's a hell of an option E. I think those guys you listed, namely, Ormir and Watkins, would be day one contributors in a way that Prey won't be. So if you look at it strictly in terms of next year's roster, it's not that, but it's something. It's a needed add, a positional need, a talent with potential to grow, not just a 1 year rental or a 1 year guy. He's got 4 years of eligibility. He's got a desire to become a pro over here in America. So perhaps we can pay him to develop at St. John's, and it's not just a 1 year thing. And he's able to, be here and tap into that potential. Like you said, he's full of potential. How ready he'll be next year is something we'll see. Day one starter, that's a question I don't know. I do think he's going to play a big part, and it's nice because I think he's a little bit more of a power forward in today's sense than the other bigs we already have on the roster, even though I may feel he's best suited to be a college five, and others may disagree because he is a little light in the frame, but I don't think he's got the perimeter shooting skills to be a full-time four, but I do believe he's more so suited to do that than Zuby, and especially Vince and Maker, obviously, who I think will be strictly fives. I've said I think Zuby will be strictly five, but we can get into that a little bit as we go. I know Rick Pitino seems awfully high on his bigs, and he's mentioned in the past how important it is to have size and length inside. So maybe he envisions using Vince and Maker more than we do. And if they're playing a lot of minutes, then that might lead to Zuby and Prey picking up more minutes at the four. With the talent abundance we have on the wings, and we'll take a look at a depth chart later, I don't envision that being the case, but I didn't envision Traore and Zuby being a 4-5 combo that we saw on a regular basis last year either. So until the season really comes around and we see the kind of things Coach Pitino's looking for and how the players best fit combination-wise, it's kind of hard to imagine or predict accurately, but that's why it's so fun.
Absolutely.
Cole was working very hard this this past 24 hours, put together a nice graphic to talk about Ruben Prey, our latest edition. I'm going to throw that up on the screen and let Cole have the microphone. Give me 1 second. There she is. Cole, have at it.
Apparently, you can teach an old dog new tricks. Look at that beautiful graphic. Yeah, Ruben Prey, 6'10" freshman, coming from Portugal via Spain, the Juventud Badalona team. Playing in the Juventud Badalona plays in Spain's #1 Premier League. So it's hard. It's always hard, especially with these international prospects, watching tape and judging how good the competition is. But the fact that he was playing in that #1 league, playing against real grown men, we'll go through some of his stats. He also played for a team called CB Pratt. So Juventud would then loan him out to CB Pratt, where he was getting more minutes so he could get more exposure. That CB Pratt team plays, and I believe the 3rd highest toughness level for Spanish basketball. So over at CB Pratt, he averaged 11.8 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, 1.1 blocks. And then during his time playing at the higher level league with Juventud Badalona, 3 points per game, 3 rebounds per game. Skills wise, he's a tremendous playmaking big, elite passer for his size, ambidextrous finisher who can finish with both hands at the rim. He's got great footwork in the post, kind of some things that he's going to have to work on. He really has a non-existent jumper at this point. To me, watching the tape, it looks like he kind of lacks explosiveness, but holes in his game that obviously one of the all-time greatest player development coaches can help him improve on. Some notes, as I mentioned, he played with Juventud Badalona in the #1 Premier Spanish basketball league. He's a real rim runner who excels in getting up and down the court, so he's going to be a perfect fit in the transition game. As we mentioned earlier, NBA upside. He's apparently already had teams looking at him at the potential to get drafted at the NBA level at some point down the road. As far as a projection, we talked. I don't know if we really see him more as a 4 or more as a 5, but for immediately coming in as a freshman, rotational big who can help us fill in minutes there at the front court. He's going to challenge for starter minutes. He's proven he can play against grown men, but he's going to need to develop that body, the shooting, and the explosiveness, like I mentioned. But if we can keep him here for a few years, if he can develop under Rick Pitino, watch out. Sky's the limit.
Good work here, Cole. Yeah, this was a deep dive. And as you can see, in his young years over there in Portugal, he's already established himself as a professional and someone who's competed against older players. When I was watching some of the most recent tape, which is of him playing in that highly competitive league against grown men, guys who have played Division I basketball, guys who have, focused their career as developing as basketball players, I didn't think he stood out as a above average athlete, but it's also, you got to realize when you got those grown men leaning on you, it's kind of hard to showcase athleticism like it would be against guys your same age, and especially for such a young kid. When you watch his tapes that are a little bit older against some of the the Euro showcases and stuff like that, the U18 where he's playing against guys of his own age, his athleticism really stands out. He's able to run the court. He's able to finish above the rim. He's got to get more physical, but you can tell he's got a real knack for crashing the glass, doesn't shy away from contact. So I think even with his light frame, he is used to kind of fighting in the trenches and battling for rebounds. I think that's going to be an added benefit, especially when we go small with him at the 5. I do think he opens up a lot of lineups that we wouldn't have without him on this roster in terms of offensively with him at the 5 that you wouldn't see if it was Zuby or Vince. More of a ball handling big who can kind of operate in that mid post as a passer or a pivot guy. He can set screens and dribble handoffs and force the defender away from the basket and allow driving lanes for the large group of guards and wings we have who are capable of getting to the rim. Your thoughts there?
I wrote down a few quotes. So Pitino mentioned Ruben bolsters our front court into not only the tallest, but also the quickest I have coached in some time. He shoots it well, runs the court rim to rim with great speed, and will comprehend the Euro offense. Zach Braziller had a great write-up after Ruben committed. He had some quotes from Ricardo Brito Reese, who is a EuroLeague announcer. He said on Ruben, he's a 6'10 guy with great speed, lateral movement. He can defend multiple positions. He's a good rim protector. Offensively, he's very versatile. He can dribble. He runs the floor really well. And when they have to play half court, he's a guy that can play both outside or inside with his back to the basket. He has to develop his left-hand dribble, but he has a great court awareness, and he's developing his three-point shot. He's a guy that can contribute immediately because he's been playing against men for 3 years at the top level. He's definitely ready to play in the NCAA.
Good job there, Ricardo and Cole. Yeah, it doesn't look. He hasn't shown much of a huge. I haven't seen many jump shots from him. The sample size isn't huge. It doesn't look like it can't get there. Like he's got no potential to be a shooter. Just hasn't really expanded that game. Again, he's a younger guy, like fighting for minutes in this professional league. Maybe that wasn't his role. Maybe he'll look to expand that now as he gets older, and he's playing against guys his own age. It's a necessity, with this day and age, if you're going to be a predominantly four who's going to be on the wing and forced to stretch the defense, unless you're playing next to a guy like, a Porzingis, who's your 5-man who can stretch the court like that. It's almost a prerequisite to be able to hit at least that open pick and pop three as a 4-man. But I think he's got the potential to get there, and it doesn't look like there's, nothing to be done with the shot, but he doesn't look like it's really something he looks to use on a regular basis.
I believe in one of the leagues last season, he shot 70% from the line. So, how I always say free throw line mechanics generally are some type of correlation to how big of a shooter you can be. So it's like the shot is there, and Rick can hopefully build and help him become extended.
It's a good sign. I think speaking of free throws, I think both Vince and Zuby shot better from the line than Davon Smith did last year. So just thinking it through, that's something, hopefully Davon gets that up over 70% consistently, because he's going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit. And if you watch any of the clips that St. John's has put out, man, does he look like he's going to be exciting to watch. Just quick, explosive, just a highlight reel waiting to happen. Good job here, Cole. Great job with the graphic and bringing in those quotes. You also put together kind of a depth chart for us to look at. This is, where it gets exciting, and fans will differ on their thoughts and opinions on this up until when the season starts, and I think that's great. It's plenty of fodder for off-season talk. This is what Cole put together, and I agree. If I had to say that the starting five tomorrow, this is the starting five I would choose. Smith and Richmond as your backcourt, Lewis and Scott as your 3 and 4, kind of interchangeable there. But I would look at Scott as more of the 4 and Lewis as more of the 3, and then Zuby as your starting center, which leaves a deep bench with some quality options there. Wilcher, Dunlap coming with a year of experience, Glover, freshman who's talented. Then you've got Prey and Vince as your bigs, and then kind of the end of the bench, lefty, Io and Maker, 11 through 13, getting some spot minutes, and who sees, and we'll see situational if they're able to kind of break in there and get some minutes.
Yeah, and I think you can also go smaller. You're having Wilcher come off the bench and go 3 guards at times. You'll see, like you mentioned, RJ and Aaron Scott kind of interchangeable. They'll both see minutes at power forward. How much we mentioned earlier, how much do we go with sort of a bigger lineup? If you can play Prey at the 4, we know Rick Pitino keeps saying that Zuby has the ability to play at the 4. Do they bring in Vince and Zuby play the 4-5 together? Can Prey and Vince play 4-5 together? I think it's a lot of different interesting mixes that you can do with these lineups. As we always love to say, tons of positional versatility, a lot of guys that can play in different spots. And I think Rick Pitino's probably salivating at the opportunity to play around with these guys and see who can fit with who and what type of lineups he can get out on the court together.
Positional versatility, indeed. You brought up Wilcher, one of our favorites going into the next year. And I think he's become almost like the wild card to this next year's team success. If he's capable of being a Big East rotational guard or more than that at the 1 and the 2, I think it opens up a lot for us, because if we want to be able to play Richmond at the wing and utilize him in small lineups, you're going to have multiple guards on the court. And if Wiltshire is not able to do that at a high level for more than 10 minutes a game, then you're really not going to have many opportunities to do that. I mean, unless you're thinking lefty's going to be ready to be a major contributor, you're going to play Glover as the two, which I don't foresee being his best position next year. I think he's going to be better off on the wing. But if Wiltshire's, up there as, a talented guy who can produce at that 6-man level or even a starter guard level, then our lineup creativity and just our perimeter punch will be that much better. You'll have 3 guys able to create, facilitate, score from that guard spot. And then you'll have Lewis and Scott, 2 wings who are versatile defenders, long athletic guys who can kind of fill those voids. And with those 5 guys and a multitude of different combinations, you can really switch all around the perimeter and have a defensive approach that will fit Coach Pitino's mindset. Aggressive, getting a bunch of steals and deflections and hands all over the basketball. So I'm really looking to see what happens to Wiltshire. I think him having this experience in the summer, coming back with some guys that are familiar with him, will give him kind of an opportunity to get more comfortable, to kind of feel like he's it's his team, even though I don't foresee him being the starting point guard with bringing in Smith. I think he's going to be a lot more confident this summer and kind of go out there and kind of take what's his. And we'll see a new Wiltshire come November.
And tip of the cap to Brady Dunlap, who, from all the pictures we've seen so far, really took off-season weight gaining to serious levels. He looks fantastic, and I know Coach is saying that he's now trying to get back into basketball shape. I bet that's pretty tough after spending all off season plowing pizza and hitting the weights. So good, but good on him. Like if we can, again, going a little smaller, if he can see minutes at the 4, his shot making ability is going to be really important, especially with some of the players that we brought in who are not quite as 3-point specialists as Brady is. And Coach Pitino's already said the same thing about Wiltshire, that they're really going to need his shot making this coming season. Obviously, we know it's tough to rely a lot on a freshman, but Jaden Glover is a tremendous shooter. So, I think that bench does look pretty deep. So that's the exciting part.
Yeah, I think Dunlap, those beach muscles are coming in. Obviously, it's the shooting we're all hoping for, and we keep hearing constantly from Pitino that he's a great shooter, and he did show in small stretches that ability. But over the long part of the season, he was kind of underwhelming as a shooter. He's got a lot to prove there, going off just the tape and his what people say about him as a recruit and what Pitino says. You're going to believe it's going to get better, and he's going to be that shooter on the wing. If he's capable of doing that for 10 to 15 minutes, I think it's a huge bonus to this team. And the great thing about Brady, I think, is he's a fighter. Like, he's not just a guy who's a passive shooter on the wing. He fights for boards. He's a pesky defender. He's a good post passer. He can feed the post well. He's a good ball mover. He doesn't hold on to it for too long. So he's a good fit as a glue guy, as a young guy, and hopefully he can develop into more than that as he becomes an upperclassman. But certainly looking to see what he can bring to the table next year and play an important role. Take a quick look at this other one you put together just to see the positional versatility. You kind of see the options we got here, and you see guys listed in more than one position here. Just hard to pinpoint exactly one position these guys will play because they have so much versatility. But you can tell. I mean, Richmond could play anywhere from the 1 through 4. Lewis could play 2 through 4. Scott could play 4 or 3. I mean, he could even play the 5 in a very small lineup if it had to happen. It's good. I love this stuff. These are the type of players I want. I want guys that can contribute in more than one area. The guys who can play multiple positions and get after defensively. So I think this roster Coach Pitino has put together is just extremely exciting to see. I couldn't be more excited, to be honest with you. Of course, if we got some of those big time forwards you're in the hunt for we mentioned earlier, perhaps I'd be a little bit more excited. But as a St. John's fan, I don't think we can ask for more than this.
No, I'm ready for game 1. Like, let's throw the ball up. Let's get after it. Like.
Exactly. And the schedule did get finalized today. Speaking of game 1, it was announced we'll play Delaware just before the new year. That's our final non-conference game. So no true road non-conference games, couple neutral games, couple good tests, Kansas State at home, New Mexico at home, Tennessee, Baylor perhaps in the Bahamas, and Georgia in the Bahamas. So we will be tested. It would have been nice to get a true road game, but those are hard to get against. You're going to have to you take a risk and sacrifice an early season loss if you're going to go play a high major team in their place. Not that, we should be scared of doing that, but they're not the easiest games to find. So I think we should be happy with the improved schedule. It's definitely an improvement, and looking forward to get there to early November. One more thing I guess we should discuss. Athletic director Mike Craig was let go. His contract was not renewed beginning of this month. Kind of was rumored going into it for a little while. Front runners are Ed Cole, who's been mentioned. He's the Fordham athletic director who had worked at St. John's, got a master's degree, I believe, from St. John's, and is close with Repole and Pitino, I believe. And then the internal candidate, John Diffley, who works in the athletic department now, has also been mentioned. Other than that, maybe there's other names in the background that haven't been discussed who are in the hunt. I don't know how quickly they'll look to fill this. I don't know how important it is to Pitino or if he's got his hands on this. I would imagine he does at least have some say here, and you don't want to upset Coach Pitino with the hire you make. But I also don't know his relationship with Diffley, if he's really likes him, if he thinks highly of him, or what that is. But I think Shanley proved to us in the coaching process that he's someone we can trust and someone who puts the St. John's basketball program in the limelight and understands the importance of it towards the university. So, I'll sit back and enjoy the process, and wherever it goes, I think I'll be fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, like, the AD role at St. John's is kind of a thankless position. It's hard, but you're ultimately defined by what you do with the men's basketball program. And I think for Craig, from everything we hear, is a tremendously nice guy. Obviously, we've heard him on the podcast with Dave, and what a great job they did together. But as far as Craig did with the men's basketball program, we had a really tough coaching search when he first hired Mike Anderson, where he was turned down by Bobby Hurley and Porter Moser. How much of that is on him? But ultimately, again, like, it's his search. He's kind of running it. And then extending Mike Anderson also ended up being kind of like a not good look. And now we had to buy him out of the rest of the contract or whatever's going on with having to pay Mike. So, I mean, those are probably two negatives on his time as AD. But one of the things I think that it was kind of well known is that Mike really was doing a good job with the facilities. I know, going back to the infamous Mike Rapoli, Mike Francesa interview, he told a great story about Craig needing to raise $100,000 for new locker rooms and talking about what an embarrassment those locker rooms were, and Rapoli immediately writing him a check to get those covered. And within a few weeks, that was already done, and new locker rooms were there for the teams. The facility topic is kind of poo-pooed at times. At least you see it on Twitter, some of the spaces. One thing, and we love all of our fans, alumni, people who live in New York, people who are jumping on the bandwagon. But I think anyone who isn't an alumnus and doesn't have or just has access into Carnesecca Arena doesn't really know how awful some of these facilities are/were. For when you're a student, you go into where you can train, like the gym for students is in the bowels of Carnesecca Arena. So you go down in through sort of those locker rooms and stuff underneath the actual basketball court. And the changing area, at least for my time while I was there, was what was currently, I believe, the women's volleyball locker room. It might have also been women's and men's volleyball locker room, but it was one of the worst locker rooms I've ever seen. I played high school basketball in Podunkville, Pennsylvania, the Colonial League, where high schools had 800 total students, and we changed in better locker rooms than that women's volleyball locker room. It was really embarrassing. I wouldn't want to take a shower in there, and knowing that Craig prioritized those things for the student athletes and got those things fixed. I haven't seen what they look like subsequent to the fixing, but I know Rapoli did brag about what a great hire Craig was at the time and complimenting him on really focusing on some of these facilities. So happy for the time that we had with Mike Craig. Wish him nothing but the best. But to your point, fully trust Rick Pitino and Father Shanley to bring in the right guy to sort of lead this. And also, I mean, as far as the facility conversation goes, we already have that huge project underway already with the new men's and women's facility that will be built that looks like it's going to be immaculate. So whatever Craig had to do with getting that done, like tip of the cap there, because I think that'll be big in making us no longer sort of a bottom dweller as far as facilities go in the
Sure.
Big East. So
Yeah, I think no ill will to Mike Craig. I think you got to thank him for the work he put in. He certainly seemed available, which I think is a nice thing to have this day and age. There was that rough stretch, the Anderson era, where it seemed like he hid for a little bit and they were getting on him on Twitter. But for the most part, I guess he answered emails and people reached out to him. He was available for Twitter and podcasts, like you said, was oftentimes on Dave's podcast, doing a great job there. I think this hire, St. John's needs a guy who's willing to fight tooth and nail in this environment and go get the best deals, go fundraise, go make our voices be heard in this landscape where, the Big East and non-football schools really got to do their best to stand out and to not get left behind. And hopefully we find that guy, and hopefully they're able to put together, a good approach to build this thing up and keep battling at the highest levels basketball-wise in this ever-changing NCAA landscape. But I think that about does it. Cole, any last comments on our roster this offseason?
No, man, like I said, can't wait for game one. Like, I'm ready for it now.
It's coming. It's coming. Well, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Cole, for putting together that graphic and helping out like you always do. Do appreciate everyone who tunes in, who subscribes, who comments, who's been along for the ride for just a short time or from the very beginning. I mean, we've got well over 100 episodes now, so we've been doing this for quite some time, and there's no end in sight. To the New York Knicks, this has been the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. I apologize, Cole. Thanks for listening. Peace.